This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Money in the Bank 2017, live from St. Louis, now in the books. The poll results up on Twitter, at Solomonster. 700 votes and counting. Poll just went up a few minutes ago. 49% thumbs up, 51% thumbs down. So very much split down the middle is the overall sentiment for this show. It gets a 100% thumbs up from me for Lana's outfit. Oh my goodness. Rusev crush. But aside from that, it is the tale of two shows in many ways. I thought the main event was excellent. I was a big fan of that main event. I'm going to talk more about it a little bit later on. Baron Corbin, Mr. Money in the Bank, validating my prediction from the annual Sound Off prediction show way back in January, episode 476. It just made sense at the time, and it makes sense now. You know, Baron Corbin, I know not everybody is a fan of his work. Not everybody is a fan of him. They think there's that one guy in the crowd that had the boring Corbin sign. Some guys, just don't like Baron Corbin. But the fact is, they've got this guy earmarked for big things. That much is pretty apparent. And Money in the Bank is certainly, it's certainly one way to fast-track somebody to the championship. If you look at the overall percentage, I would wager that most people who win the briefcase do go on to win the title. I don't see that happening anytime soon, at least not so long as Jinder Mahal is the champion. But now Baron Corbin has himself a briefcase. Maybe that'll make him interesting to people who don't find him interesting. It gives him, kind of an added gimmick there. But I thought the main event was great. The rest of the show, very much a mixed bag. I'm very hesitant to crap on the entire show because there was stuff that I liked. For example, the opening match, very good, and then came the lame finish. The tag team title match, very good, and then came the lame finish. And we saw that quite a bit here on this show, although there weren't that many matches. There really weren't even that many matches overall. But let's go through this here one by one, and I'll give my thoughts on each match. Hype Bros and the Colognes in the kickoff match. Zack, Ryder, and Mojo Rawley now back together. Zack Ryder was selling the knee, because when you are returning from knee surgery, that's what you do. You sell the knee, and you get heat on the guy by going after the knee. Keep that in mind, by the way, the whole knee thing, because I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on here in the show. But anyway, made the hot tag to Mojo. They ran wild at the end. They hit the Rough Rider finish. Pretty basic stuff. So the Hype Bros back to their winning ways. Pay-per-view opened with the first ever Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Carmella, Tamina, and Natalya. They were having a pretty damn good match, I have to say. I was very worried going into this thing here. Women have never been put in a Money in the Bank ladder match before. It's one thing to have a singles ladder match. We've seen things with the women that we've not seen before in the last few years. We've seen the women have a Hell in a Cell match for the first time, and we've seen, Sasha and Bayley doing an Iron Woman match and that sort of thing, but not just a collection of 5 or 6 different women stuck in a ladder match. That always worried me. And at least I don't think anybody got hurt. I guess we'll find out later on when the reports of all the injuries come in. But everybody seemed to be okay when it was over. Now, Becky Lynch had the match won. She was inches away from pulling down the briefcase when all of a sudden James Ellsworth runs in, tips the ladder over, and Becky took a hangman bump across the top rope. That led to Ellsworth climbing the ladder, unhooking the briefcase, and then dropping it down into Carmella's hands down below. And the referees argued about the finish. People actually popped huge when Ellsworth pulled that briefcase down. I don't know what the hell that says about the fans, or maybe just about how much they care about the women in this match. But is he from St. Louis? Maybe that's it. Maybe Ellsworth is from St. Louis. I don't know. But the people popped big when he did that. I didn't. I can tell you that much. I didn't pop very big at all from where I was sitting. Referees outside the ring, they're arguing the finish. They don't know what to do. It seemed as though they were going to continue the match. And then nothing happened. They just allowed it. And I guess on commentary they were talking about how there's a lot of confusion. There's no precedent for this sort of thing. It kind of reminds me of those Royal Rumble matches where the guy who's either not in the match to begin with, or maybe he's already been eliminated, comes back in and then dumps somebody out, even though they're no longer in the match or never were in the match. Somehow, in most of those situations, the poor bastard who got thrown out of the ring is officially eliminated. That's sort of been the way they've done things in the Rumble. I guess it's sort of a similar thing here, too. You don't even have to be in the match to win the damn thing. Now, I thought what really got me here is the fact that they built this up like such a big deal. This is such a historic thing, the very first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And it will go down in the record books with that finish. The finish of the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match is won by a man. And, Ellsworth and Carmella, they're entertaining enough together, but I think it's a mistake. They've been pushing this guy. They've really kind of gelled together as a team. They're like the odd couple, these two. But I think Ellsworth should still be the one who's getting sort of abused in a way each week. And you want to put sympathy on the guy. And they took it in a different direction. And that's fine. But I do think Ellsworth should have been the one to take the big bump or a big bump off the ladder. Maybe they just didn't want to take away from what was to come in the main event. But I would have had, Ellsworth take the big bump down below through a table maybe or something, and then let, after one of the other women tips the ladder over with him on it, and then have Carmella steal the win, and get some heel heat out of it. You could still get to the same outcome, which is putting heat on Carmella for the win, but Ellsworth is, in a crumpled heap down below or something like that. That at least would have been a little more satisfying to me. They worked hard. Everybody in the match worked hard, but I just thought the finish was very disappointing. Now, having said all of that, and I say that it was disappointing not because, the heel won, and you're supposed to be upset. It was just disappointing as a finish. I don't give a crap if it's the babyface or the heel. It doesn't bother me. But what they're doing now is they're hyping up Daniel Bryan's return to SmackDown this Tuesday. He's going to make some sort of a ruling on the finish. So that's why they did it. They did it to get you to watch TV on Tuesday. And as much as that finish pissed me off, that's the kind of the point of this, isn't it? I mean, you want to get people to tune into the TV show on Tuesday. And so I can only fault them to a point. I get why they did what they did. I just would have gone about it a different way. But then again, if Carmella wins straight up, I guess that takes away the drama of whatever they're going to do on Tuesday. So all I can say is that they better have one hell of an angle planned for that television show on Tuesday night. And I am skeptical. I'm skeptical that what they do on TV this week is going to, in some way, validate to me what they did here. It was still very lame. We had the Usos defending the Smackdown Tag Team titles against Kofi Kingston and Big E, representing New Day. Kofi Kingston took a bump out of the ring. My God, he took this bump. He went ass over tea kettle out of the ring. He landed right on his head. He cleared the ropes and everything. It was one of these things where Kofi went to go hit the ropes. The Usos had made a tag. I guess it might have been a blind tag. And Kofi hits the ropes. He comes off, and the Uso on the apron pulled the top rope down, and Kofi just went soaring. Didn't even touch the ropes. Landed right on the back of his head. It was a miracle that he didn't kill himself. So they worked over Kofi for a while. They worked over Kofi's knee. Remember I said we were going to come back to that word? There it is again. We're going to come back to it again later on. Remember that. The knee. They worked over the knee. They put him in the Tequila Sunrise, which the only reason I even remember the name of that move is because I know it's a Conan move. So they put him in that. He would not tap out. New Day did end up hitting the Midnight Hour later on Jey Uso. And by the way, Big E, he did get his signature dive in the match and did not break his shoulder, but it's coming. One of these days, it will happen. It is inevitable. But Midnight Hour on Jey Uso, they have the match won. Jimmy reaches in, he yanks his brother out right before the 3 count. They collect their titles, they bail, and they get counted out. So again, very good match. Lame-ass finish. However, the right finish. That's kind of what I'm struggling with here on this show because some of these finishes were just awful, and maybe it was just back to back to back the way it was. It did not make for a great show, but in this case it made sense because it was the first match in what I'm sure is going to be a long, drawn-out series between these two teams. They're going to have many more matches. And if they're anything like the match tonight, finish aside, I'm okay with that because I thought this was actually a really good match up until the lame count-out finish. We had Lana and Naomi for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Lana, I mentioned Lana's attire earlier. She didn't look bad in the ring either in terms of her actual wrestling. We've not seen her in a singles match until now, and she didn't embarrass herself. So that's a good thing. I didn't know what to expect. All she ever did that I saw was she was in that multi-woman match at WrestleMania last year, and that was it. But I think she held her own in there, and she'll, I'm sure, improve with time. She worked over Naomi's knee. There's that word again. Not the last time you're going to hear it either. Worked over Naomi's knee. She was suplexing her around, and her leg, her knee each time would hit the ropes on the way down. So Carmella's music hits in the middle of this match. Lana is in the middle of dominating. All of a sudden we hear the FABULOUSWXQ, whatever. So she comes out with Ellsworth, and they have their own referee. And she goes over to the timekeeper's table, and she's teasing that she's going to cash in, but then she decides against it. Instead, she opts to just stand there and watch the rest of the match. And Lana is just, beside herself. She's like, what the hell are you doing out here? And Carmella's like, I'm just here to watch. Go ahead, wrestle, continue the match. So earlier, Lana had hit her sit-out spine buster, the one we saw her pull off on Tuesday. She hit that earlier, didn't win with it, so she went for it again. Only this time, Naomi countered it into some submission hold of hers. I don't know if it has a name. I don't remember the announcers mentioning the name. If you know the name of it, please put that in the comments section down below. But whatever it is, Lana tapped out. And I thought for a brief second that Carmella would cash in. She would go after the knee. But she didn't. She teased it again, and then she decided, I'm not going to cash in tonight. So they're already teasing it. Although I suspect it may all be a moot point depending upon what angle they do on Tuesday to kind of fix this situation. There's a lot of controversy now around her having that briefcase. But Naomi wins. She is still the champion. We had a Fashion Files segment with Breezango. This was a spoof on Miami Vice. Fandango had the old school, the big-ass brick portable phone, cell phone. Had property of Paul E. Dangerously written on it. There was a mysterious tape, I guess, that had been delivered. They played it on this old school VHS, and this mystery tag team said that they were the ones who attacked Tyler Breeze last week on TV when Fandango found him all laid out in their office. And they said, meet us in the ring later tonight. And I actually foolishly thought to myself, I wonder if they're going to maybe debut a new tag team. Maybe it's an existing team that's going heel or something. I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. I don't know where the hell they are. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of curious to see what they have in mind here. Boy, did I feel like a moron by the time this played itself out later. We had the debut on Smackdown Live here of Mike and Maria Kanellis. Former Mike Bennett. Maria Kanellis, of course, you already know. But yes, in fact, he has taken her last name. That is part of their gimmick. I must say, watching the two of them here, they walked out to this love song. They had hearts that were superimposed on the floor. These two come out, they are madly in love with each other. And to be fair, I mean, if you were married to Maria, you would probably be madly in love as well. I'm sure Carl Anderson is. He now is a very big fan of SmackDown Live all of a sudden. But I look at these two, and I immediately thought, this is the new Miz and Maurice for SmackDown. Because SmackDown has been missing a few things since the shakeup. SmackDown is actually worse off in some ways ever since the Superstar shakeup. It just hasn't been the same. And I think one of the reasons is Miz and Maurice. They really made that their show. They were a great act on the show, and I enjoyed whenever Miz would go off on Daniel Bryan and Daniel Bryan would go off on Miz, even though there can never be any payoff between the two of them. But I think that SmackDown's been missing them, and maybe more so, I think Miz and Maurice probably have been missing SmackDown, especially after that bear nonsense from Monday night. But Maria's out there. She's got one of the headset mic deals, and she calls herself the First Lady of Wrestling, which is what she also did in TNA. To me, though, there will always only be one First Lady of Wrestling, and that lady should be in the WWE Hall of Fame right now. Hopefully one day Elizabeth will take her spot in the Hall of Fame. Maria talked about the power of love. And, you know, between the Huey Lewis reference and the Miami Vice spoof that came before this with Breezango, I was waiting for Alf to do a run-in during the main event. Too early to make a judgment. There were people trashing this thing on Twitter, and it's like, it's the first night. You know what I mean? Like, it felt cheesy. It did feel a little bit cheesy, but let's let this play out on at least one television show before we all, bury this thing 6 feet under. It seems like it could be entertaining. Maria's great. I mean, I saw, some of her work in TNA, her work in Ring of Honor, and, obviously she's a very pretty girl. I mean, Maria's great. Bennett, we'll see. I've never been, a gigantic Mike Bennett fan. We're gonna see what he's made of. We'll find out soon enough, because these two bypassed NXT to come straight to the main roster, which I also thought was very interesting. Not everybody has a chance to do that. But again, too early to make a judgment on the gimmick. It does look like it has the potential to get heat, which I guess would be the point, especially if people think this guy is whipped, for taking her last name, and if she kind of has him wrapped around her finger. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. The one thing I do love already about them is the music. I have to admit, that damn music, I still have it stuck in my head. So they better get that up on YouTube or Spotify tomorrow. Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal for the WWE Championship. They had a whole group of St. Louis wrestling legends introduced at ringside before the match. Greg Gagne, Larry the Axe Hennig, Baron von Raschke, who was flipping out and looked like he was having a frickin' seizure or something as he was, he was mugging for the camera. He was putting the claw up. He was freaking out. He was the most animated guy of the bunch. We had Sergeant Slaughter, who got a big pop. Cowboy Bob Orton was out there. And, of course, Ric Flair made an appearance. His hand looked okay. Remember Ric Flair about a week or two ago? There was a big story on TMZ. He did something to his hand. I think he kind of tongue-in-cheek claimed that he was in a fight with somebody. I thought maybe it was some sort of household accident. But he had this just gigantic bandage around his hand, like he lost fingers and stuff. I'm like, what the hell did this guy do to himself? But nothing on his hands here. He looked fine, so I have no idea what that was all about, but I guess he's all healed up. Now, I've been talking about the knee here throughout this review, and it was during this match that it hit me, and I tweeted this out too. The Usos worked over Kofi's knee. I actually left one out when I tweeted this. I should have mentioned Zack Ryder. It goes back all the way to the pre-show. Zack Ryder, at least there it made sense, right? Came back from knee surgery. He's selling a knee injury in his match. The Usos are working over Kofi Kingston's knee. Lana is working over Naomi's knee. Jinder Mahal here in this match, guess what he worked over? Randy Orton's knee. Are there no other body parts for these guys to work on? Maybe a neck, maybe a shoulder. See, in this match, I thought it would be smart. If I'm Jinder Mahal, right, I'm going after this guy's arm. This whole thing has been built on RKO out of nowhere. The last time we saw these two in the ring together on TV Tuesday night, Jinder had his back turned. What happened? Randy Orton snuck up from behind. Boom! RKO out of nowhere. You take away the arm, you take away the guy's secret weapon. Or maybe not so secret weapon. But, worked over the knee. Knee. All up and down this show. Look, I'm all for ring psychology, believe me. I'm all for it. But did nobody notice this when they put this show together? Are they not communicating with each other here? Because by the time this match rolled around, it was like, this is pretty blatantly obvious to me. I can't be the only one who realizes this here. The main event was going to be a car crash, so they were going to be selling all kinds of injuries in the main event. But literally, it seems like every single match on this show, somebody was selling a knee injury, or selling the knee, or working over the knee. So, yeah, you got to pay closer attention to that sort of thing, because after a while, it becomes a little redundant, But I will say this about this match: good heat. Good heat for this match. People chanting Randy Orton's name. Of course, they were in his hometown, If Randy Orton can't get cheered in his hometown, he's got big problems. But I thought overall, it was fine. The match was good. Nothing exceptional, nothing overly exciting. But as a match, it was good enough. Orton hit the RKO on Jinder. And you could see Jinder kind of positioning himself close to the rope. So you knew the Singh brothers were going to get involved somehow. He had the match won. All of a sudden, before the ref counts 3, one of the Singh brothers takes Jinder's foot, puts it on the bottom rope, in plain sight of the referee. Mike Chioda goes to DQ Jinder Mahal. And I'm thinking to myself, we've already had a pair, maybe more than a pair, of pretty lame finishes here on this show. The last thing we need is a disqualification in our WWE Championship match. And thankfully, Randy Orton was begging the referees, begging Chioda, don't do it, please do not DQ me. Throw these guys out. Do not call for the DQ. And Chioda obliges. Instead, he ejects the Singh brothers. And so they go to leave. And they begin to trash talk all the legends at ringside. They grab Randy Orton's father. And I get that these guys, they're the old guys, right? They're in their 60s, right? 70s maybe in other cases. But he made no attempt to defend himself, no attempt to fight back. Ric Flair is there. Ric Flair sort of teased that he was going to stand up for Cowboy Bob, and all he did was just make a face. He didn't do anything. They could have killed this poor bastard. Nobody would have lifted a finger to help him. They were waiting for Randy Orton to come over. Finally, Randy comes over. He saves his father. And he flips his lid. He goes absolutely nuts. He destroys the Singh brothers. He gave one of them one of those wild throws where he kind of threw the guy up in the air and they landed on their neck on the announce desk last month. He did that again. He gave one of them an RKO on the floor. And with the other Singh brother up on one of the announce desks, Randy climbed up on the other announce desk. They have 3 international... you have the international one on the end, the American one in the middle. There's another one on the opposite end. So Orton gets up on the middle table. He waits, and he waits, and he waits, and finally he drops the other Singh brother through the announce table with an RKO. So the Singh brothers have been dispatched. They have been taken care of. But, unfortunately for Randy Orton, he took his eye off the ball. Here on Father's Day, he saw his father being attacked, and he just lost his cool, and it cost him in the end because he rolled into the ring. Jinder kicked him in the gut, and he flattened him with a Cobra Clutch Slam. Right in front of Sergeant Slaughter, no less. Right there in the front row. Talk about rubbing salt in the wound. And Jinder gets the 3 count. He retains the championship. So Jinder Mahal escapes St. Louis with the WWE Championship. I think it's a pretty safe bet he's at least going to SummerSlam with it, if not longer. Randy Orton, to his credit, doing for Jinder Mahal what he did for Mark Henry many, many years ago. Putting the guy over 2 matches in a row, 2 title matches on 2 consecutive pay-per-views. And that was a big deal back in 2011 when he did that for Mark Henry. Henry was in the midst of this big Hall of Pain run, which unfortunately was derailed by injury, which is something that plagued Mark Henry all throughout his career. And so Orton, doing the same for Jinder Mahal, and I guess sending him on his way, sending him on a collision course at some point soon with John Cena. We had Breezango. As I said earlier, I was kind of interested. Who is this mystery tag team that was on the little TV screen backstage threatening them? Would it be a new team that we've never seen before? Would it be somebody from NXT? Turned out... And by the way, big pop for Breezango coming out here for this match. Unfortunately, it turned out to be the Ascension. This was the definition of filler. They had time to fill before the main event. This clearly did not have too much thought put into it. They just sent the Ascension out there. They had a very brief 2-minute, 3-minute, whatever it was, lame match. They couldn't even give Breezango a decisive win. Fandango got like a very awful looking roll up on, was it Connor? I don't even remember who it was. But Breezango barely got the win, and that was it. They rushed him out of there because they had to get ready for the main event. This was the definition of filling time, and I just, Look, it is what it is, I guess, right? It's not an important segment. It was not slotted as anything important, even though the people were into Breezango. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, is this really the most creative thing that they could come up with here? This is it. This is their big idea here on this pay-per-view. Just send the Ascension out there to kill time with these guys. Whatever. Main event was the Money in the Bank ladder match. AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, and Baron Corbin. Corbin attacked Nakamura. He committed the ultimate sin. He attacked Nakamura in the middle of his entrance. Some people say that's all Nakamura is. There's a lot of Shinsuke haters out there. They think he's overhyped and overrated. They don't get what's so great about him. All he is an entrance and a theme song. And he didn't even get that. Baron Corbin attacked him. He hit him with a ladder in the aisle. Then he grabbed a TV camera. He hit him with the camera, laid him out. So that was it for Nakamura, at least for now. I thought it was great. Put heat on Corbin. Corbin's, a cocky SOB out there. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. That's his whole gimmick. Baron Corbin don't care. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about anybody else on the roster. He only cares about Baron Corbin. And so the match began one man short, but did not take away from the match at all. This was, I thought, an outstanding main event. And some might say even the match that saved the show. If we got a bad main event or a bad finish to the main event, this would be an easy thumbs down show. Easy thumbs down. Because even though some of the matches were good, there were a lot of very frustrating finishes on this show. And to do that back to back to back, you got to give people something satisfying at some point. I felt like that's what we got here, but this match really was the turning point, I think, for this show. And because I liked the match so much, I'd probably, I would give the show a thumbs up, barely. Again, it's low praise because this was not really a very exciting show, to be honest with you, overall. But the main event was outstanding, and we had far too many big spots to go through here, but some of the ones that I highlighted in my notes here that really stood out for me, Sami Zayn was one of the standouts in this match. They gave Sami Zayn an awful lot more than I thought they would here in this match. Normally, he's the one being beaten down, he's the one getting his ass kicked and taking all the abuse. But he got to dish it out here. There was a spot where he gave Dolph Ziggler a sunset flip powerbomb off the ladder. And Ziggler hit hard on the way down. Sammy also hit hard on the way down. Looked like he landed right on his knees. But that was crazy. So then Zayn follows that up with a half Nelson slam to Kevin Owens on the apron. Kevin Owens landed right on the back of his head, right in his neck, folded up like an accordion, on what they always love to tell us is the hardest part of the ring, in case you haven't figured it out by now. So Sami Zayn's out there killing dudes. He's the Terminator out there, the Canadian Terminator. Now he's climbing the ladder, and AJ Styles comes from out of nowhere, off camera. You couldn't even see him. He launched himself from off screen with a phenomenal forearm, knocked Sami off the ladder. They had a fun spot where AJ is within just inches of grabbing the briefcase. Dolph Ziggler grabs the ladder out from underneath him. And so AJ is just hanging. He is hanging from the cable above. He's struggling. He's hanging on. He's trying. And then he realizes, I can't hold on anymore. And he looks down. He says, holy crap, that's a long way down. But down he went. And he took a big bump. I'm guessing every bit of 10 to 15 feet. Crashed and burned down below on the mat. Then came one of the high points of the match. Everybody's been wiped out. We have Baron Corbin now back in the ring, setting up the ladder, seemingly on his way to victory. All of a sudden, Nakamura's music hits. And this was the genius of how they did this, right? So you take Nakamura out early on, and so you build to the predictable spot in the match where he comes out as the big savior and gets the big pop. And that's exactly what happened. People went nuts. He came out. Corbin actually threw a ladder at him, but Nakamura sort of ducked it, slid into the ring, beat the piss out of him, beat the piss out of a bunch of people, gave them Kinshasas, gave one to Dolph Ziggler, gave one to Kevin Owens. And then it came down to AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. And this is where people were doing the yes chant. We had dueling chants for both guys. This is awesome chants. Now, there was a ladder set up in the ring. AJ's on one side, Nakamura's on the other. They're staring at each other. They're like, you know what? Let's put this ladder aside. They actually move the ladder aside, and they go at it for a few minutes. I wasn't sure if they were going to touch or if Corbin was going to come in maybe and break it up, but they went at it for a couple of minutes there, and it was great. It was great. They both, hit some moves and got some offense in on the other. Both men, laid out. And then finally, AJ and Nakamura end up climbing the ladder. So both of them, we got AJ on one side, Nakamura on the other. They're at the top. They're reaching up for the briefcase. They're touching it. They're clawing at it. Baron Corbin comes back inside the ring. He tips the ladder over, sends both of them down to the floor, down to the mat, I should say. And Baron Corbin unhooks the briefcase. He is your Money in the Bank winner for 2017. And like I said before, a fantastic main event. Everybody had a chance to shine, especially Sami Zayn. And we got our very first taste in a WWE ring of AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, which I have no doubt, I'll call it now, is going to be the WrestleMania match next year. Not main event, but it will be one of the feature bouts of WrestleMania next year. I think SummerSlam is probably too soon. Look, at some point it's got to happen. If it happens at SummerSlam, great. If it were me, that's a match I build and I save for WrestleMania next year. But the time that they were in there, at least this crowd in St. Louis, these people were into it. These people were into this like a big-time match. You know, when John Cena's in there, everyone's doing the dueling chants, everybody's making noise. That's what we got here. And there was no John Cena. There was no Randy Orton. There was no Undertaker, no Brock, no Goldberg. To me, that's a good sign. And I think it has more to do, all due respect to Nakamura, I mean, he's a big name, but I think it has a lot to do with AJ Styles and how over this guy is and how well he has really ingratiated himself with the WWE audience. You never know how these things are going to go, right? AJ comes in, a lot of people I'm sure are very worried about how he's going to integrate into the roster, how they're going to book him, how's he going to be treated. You know, at the end of the day, he is he was a TNA guy for so many years. You don't know how they might hold that against him. And he hasn't been here for very long. He has not been in this company for as long as it seems. And he has just, I mean, it's like putting on a glove. I mean, he fits perfectly and the fans love him. And you can always rely on him to go out there and have a great match against almost anybody. I don't think I've seen him have a truly bad match yet since coming into WWE. And, you know, now you take Nakamura, who and his star power, you put the two of them together. To me, that has the recipe for a big-time match. Now, during the match, and I'll put this up on the screen here, in the middle of the Money in the Bank match, there was an interesting tweet from Rusev, who said, "Okay, I had enough of this." We never saw Rusev. We never heard from Rusev. I would imagine, though, that Rusev is coming. Maybe Rusev was just aggravated because Lana got a championship match before he did. Think about it, right? One of the last times we saw Rusev, maybe the second to last appearance he made, was that tape that he sent in to Shane McMahon. Remember that? Remember what he said? "I'm not coming back unless you give me a championship match at Money in the Bank." And it was Lana who got the championship match at Money in the Bank, and Rusev is nowhere to be found. If I were him, I'd be pissed off too. So I would suspect that we'll be seeing him on TV this week. And that was Money in the Bank. Excellent main event. A very frustrating undercard. Good as some of the matches were, some of those finishes. The tag team match made sense. Begrudgingly, I will say. It was a finish that made sense. But overall, it was very lame. A very lame show. Up until that main event, which really did save it. I'm just going to bring up the poll again here to see where we are with these poll results before we wrap up here. Remember earlier, it was 49 up, 51 down after 700 votes. We now have almost 1,200 votes, and it is an even 50-50 split. So this is a very polarizing show. A lot of divided opinion on Money in the Bank. And if you want to chime in with your own thoughts in the comments section down below, please do so. Also, please hit like on this video. That would be cool if you did that. And if you didn't check out Sound Off episode 500, I did celebrate my 500th episode of the full Sound Off podcast. And I did a live stream on YouTube that went almost 4.5 hours, largely because I was just taking tons of phone calls from you guys. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and called in for that. You can find the full show or just skim the parts you like. We had some cameos. We had Mish from Wrestling Soup called in. That was cool. And so you could check that out right here on this very YouTube channel. When you're done listening to this video, go check out Sound Off 500. I would very much appreciate that. If you want to vote in the Money in the Bank poll, you can do so on my Twitter. @Solomonster is the handle. I will be back for a full episode of the Sound Off, number 501, pushing out through Podbean and iTunes and all the usual platforms next Sunday. So until then, I am the Solomonster. Be well, stay safe. I will see you back next weekend for 501, and until then, take care, guys.